Tony, what are we talking about today? What's the
we are talking about how to eliminate negative thoughts that interfere with your sales success.
Listen, I have a negative thought right now that's interfering with my sales success. Could you please remove it? Yeah,
Absolutely.
I literally had a negative problem the other day, and it was on a gigantic deal. I started freaking myself out that, that I don't know, there was some problem that wasn't even there. So I started seeing problems all over the place.
Yeah, it's interesting how it is that stuff can just kind of take over your mental faculties.
So is the fix to take the wooden door behind you, smack yourself in the head? Because that really worked pretty well for me.
Did that work well for you? Did you try that?
Yeah, I got a little bit of a knot here, but it worked really well. I smacked the crap out of myself and said, quit that crap, So,
well, that's one approach. I'm going to teach you guys another approach today.
Well, please do, because it's painful. It's painful.
That's true. That's the painful solution. Hopefully this one is a little bit more gentle than
well, with that, now that I have my my cosmetic filter down, Paul.
All right, great. So I'm gonna share my deck.
I'm gonna mute myself and let you go.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's get this guy going. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, my name's Maree Torrey, and I have been dubbed LA's foremost business success coach. And I've worked with Matt and his business partner, and then Matt invited me to come on and start working with you guys too, because everyone needs a little help and support when it comes to improving their performance and just really making the most out of this opportunity that you have as financial advisors. And some of my favorite people to work with are financial advisors, and it's because through you, I get to be more empowering. I get to make a difference in the world because that's what you guys are doing. You're protecting people's financial futures. And so I just want you to know, it's like I will always take a stand for you. If you ever need to reach out to me for any help and support, I just invite you to do so. And I'm just going to move my controls. I'm not sure if that's getting in the way of the recording. Anyway, so to that end, let's jump into today's topic, which is all about how to eliminate negative thoughts that interfere with your sales success. And we're going to be talking about a few things today. We're going to be talking about how to stop those destructive thinking habits that reduce your ability to connect with your clients and impact your close rates, and the emotions that you and your prospects are probably dealing with, so you can recognize them and help know what to do about them, and how to intercept those unproductive thoughts and feelings that disrupt you in your sales flow. And we're going to be talking about the specifics of the saboteurs to watch out for, so you can recognize them. You can recognize their voices and the lies that they tell you, and come up with the solution to be more effective and happier and do a better job in your business. All right, so let's talk about the definition of anxiety. And now, why would we want to be talking about anxiety? It's because it's a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So why would we start, when we're discussing sales, talking about anxiety? Well, the reason why is because, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, that especially when it comes to finances, anxiety is a primary emotion that your prospects are feeling. The financial environment is just threaded with uncertainty. They don't know whether the taxes are going to go up. They don't know if they've got enough money for retirement, all those things. So that's a primary emotion that you're working with when you are talking with your clients. And then it's also an emotion that you're probably dealing with yourself, because we're in the business of sales here. And sales is fraught with uncertainty. You don't know who it is that you're about to have a conversation with. You don't know what the outcome of the sales calls are going to be. And so almost every single one of us, when we're going through these kinds of sales processes, are dealing with some level of anxiety. And some of you might recall that my last presentation, we were talking about human needs, and the need for certainty is actually the most primal, the initial human need that we all have of those 6 core human needs. So you get a bunch of anxious people together and you're kind of heading for trouble unless you can bring what my colleague Richard Bell, who works with a lot of Silicon Valley CEOs, calls bringing a non-anxious presence to an anxious situation. And so that's what we're all about today. We're all about working out how you can bring a non-anxious presence to an anxious situation. All right. So how do you make sure you do this? Well, part of it is that we need to understand how it is that our brains function. So knowing how our minds work is like understanding how your car works. If our car's engine is making a funny noise, but we don't know where that noise is coming from, we're likely to feel pretty anxious about it. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to take it to someone who does know how to fix it. They can take a look under the hood to see what might be wrong with our car. Or we might actually start worrying about the terrible things that could happen, you know, the expensive bill, the expensive repair bill that might be happening. Or we might even do something like avoid dealing with it. We might let it run on and on before we actually do anything about it. We might let the situation get worse. And sometimes we do the same thing with our mind. So not knowing how our cars work is kind of the same as not knowing how our brains work. We have to work out what makes us tick and how we sabotage ourselves in order to minimize the impact of the unproductive thinking, and how we can consistently engage in wiser, calmer ways of thinking that allow us to bring that non-anxious presence into our dialogues. And so over time, we really get to know ourselves. We build up our own wisdom and we become a master mechanic of our own minds when we do our work. And I like to call this mental fitness. And when we're mentally fit, that's when it is that we can be calmer, we can be more centered, we can still function well under pressure, and we can become a sales ninja, because now you've paired your technical knowledge, which I know you all have, and I know Matt helps you with so much. You guys have amazing technical knowledge. And now you can pair that with your wise guidance. So let's start understanding how our minds work. And first, we're going to take a look at the problem, and then we'll take a look at some solutions. So
sorry to the few people I held up. I had a computer freeze up for a second, but you show Rob Talbot and those guys. I apologize. I was trying to get you in, and my computer totally screwed up. Tony, I apologize too. Were you guys able to hear her? Whatever that, I didn't lose you completely, did I?
Yeah, she was good.
Awesome. Thanks for letting us know, Francis. Appreciate that. The joys of modern technology, right? It makes life easy and sometimes complicated. So what we're going to do is we're going to first understand how our minds work by looking at the problem, and then we'll take a look at some solutions. So this is kind of like going to mechanic school and learning to identify the sound that your engine's making when it isn't running well. Let me just move my next slide. Oops, there we go. All right. So according to research, 80% of us are held back from achieving our full potential by 10 mental saboteurs. We carry all these saboteurs in varying degrees, and they impact our ability to achieve our full potential. And we can only achieve our full potential when we know what they are, when we know how to identify them, and then we know how to neutralize them when they appear. So in sales, you'll eventually hit a wall unless you also address these mental saboteurs that are working against each and every single one of us. Like you heard Matt mention at the beginning of the call. I mean, he's a consummate professional. He's been doing this for a long time and has a ton of experience. But even still, sometimes in a sales conversation, that mental chatter will come up. So unless we can tackle and weaken these patterns and programs that we have in our brains, these internal enemies, they will do their best to rob us of the improvements that we're trying to create in our lives and in other people's lives. It's kind of like when you ignore your saboteurs, it's like planting a beautiful garden and leaving voracious snails free to roam. So I'm going to show you how to spot these particular mental pests, recognize their lies, and how to loosen their grip. And as we go through these different types, I want to encourage you to see if you can recognize some of them. I'm going to describe these different saboteurs to you, and you might see how they operate in your own life and also in the lives of people you know. And I do recommend that when you if you look at this and you go, oh my gosh, I know that my wife is this way, or my kid is this way, don't necessarily run off to them telling them who they are and what their biggest saboteurs are. I do recommend that you take a look at it from your own perspective and just see which ones you think are most commonly at play in your own life, because we tend to have kind of like a top 2 or 3 saboteurs that play out the most for us. So it's really interesting to see how much we can recognize in ourselves and others as we go through this list. So, and this is not necessarily in any particular order. This is just how they came out. So the first one is the controller, and the controller needs to take charge, control situations, and bend others to its own will. And notice we say its own will, because this is a part of you. This is not the whole of you. And then the stickler needs perfection, order, organization to the extreme. The stickler tends to be nitpicky with other people and impacts our ability to be in relationship with them because of that. And then the avoider. The avoider is one of my top saboteurs. It focuses on the positive and pleasant to the extreme and avoids difficult, unpleasant tasks and conflicts. Something that I really have to watch in myself is if there is something uncomfortable, like, for instance, taxes, something that I don't particularly like to do. I used to, before doing this work, put off all the way until the last extension possible, and then finally get my act together at the last minute and create a whole bunch of extra stress for myself. I'm proud to say, having started doing this particular body of work for myself as well, I actually now, for this last year, for the first year, I actually did my taxes on time, actually a week ahead. My accountant was so proud of me. So there is hope for us all. If I can move out of my avoider patterns, you guys can move out of your patterns too. All right, so the next one is the hyperachiever. The hyperachiever depends on constant performance and achievement to create their sense of self-respect and validation and feeling good enough and worthy enough in the world. The pleaser gains acceptance and affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing, or flattering others. And so one of the problems that the pleaser encounters is that they sometimes have trouble meeting and expressing their own needs. They put themselves on the back burner, and that can lead to resentment and feelings of separation in relationship and with the world. And then the next one is the victim. The victim is very common. The victim tends to seek attention by getting others to feel their emotions, getting others to get hooked into their story, their poor me stories, and they play that helplessness card. They oftentimes do not take responsibility for themselves and their situation and their outcomes. The victim tends to blame others for results that they don't like and doesn't like to take a look at their own responsibility in a situation. Now we have restless. Restless is a really fun one too. Even just listening to this presentation, perhaps there's a part of you that is feeling fidgety. Like that's a really good sign of the restless saboteur. It searches for constantly searches for greater excitement in the next activity and through constant busyness. So this can show up as multitasking, for instance. And we actually do know neurologically from all the studies that have gone out there that multitasking in fact doesn't work. It's not actually what you're doing. What you're doing is flipping from one task to the next constantly and losing focus, so you're not as effective. And so that's a way that the restless could play out. It could also play out with the need to create constant variety for yourself. Probably one of the most destructive examples of someone being restless and seeking out variety is how it can affect marriages and relationships. Infidelity is a pretty classic example of the restless saboteur showing up. The next one is hypervigilant. So the hypervigilant is very intensely and continuously anxiety-ridden about things that might go wrong. And then the next one is the hyper-rational. The hyper-rational, and this may be something that shows up for you guys in financial services because you're talking a lot about numbers. It attracts people that are interested in numbers. And of course, numbers have their value and they're super important. And sometimes what that can lead to is being so focused on rational processing that you miss the emotional side of things. And of course, most of the rest of the population is run by their emotions. And so not being able to kind of recognize and acknowledge someone's emotions can be very problematic, especially in a sales conversation. And I think one of my favorite examples of the hyper-rational in current culture is, if any of you have ever watched Big Bang Theory, the character Sheldon is a super hyper rational. And of course, that leads to massive amounts of comedy because he just gets himself into all sorts of trouble with other people. And then, of course, on the flip side is actually just very unsettled himself, even though he expects rationality to be the thing that runs the day. So those are our saboteurs, and we have 9 of them. And these are what's known as accomplice saboteurs, because we also have one big daddy of a saboteur, and that's the judge. The judge saboteur is really like just absolutely hardwired into us. It serves a purpose because we do need to be able to make a judgment between whether something is good for us and whether something isn't, whether a situation is safe or not. And it was very, very important when we were back in ancient days and we had the wandering down the jungle path looking to our left and our right. And then when we are seeing a rustle in the trees further down the jungle path, if we're thinking everything's hunky-dory and we're not making any judgments about things, then we don't necessarily notice that saber-toothed tiger that comes out and eats us for his dinner. And so that takes us out of contributing to the future gene pool. So essentially, the judge is a strong survival mechanism that we have evolved into, because guess what? The ones that did a good job of judging that situation and running for the hills and getting out of the way of the saber-toothed tiger, they're the ones that have contributed to our gene pool and future generations. So the judge is super, super strong. And it's the one that actually judges ourselves negatively or positively, and other people and situations and circumstances negatively or positively. And when we go into that negative mindset, then that tends to typically trigger these secondary accomplice saboteurs. And so one way to look at the saboteurs is that the saboteur is the one that takes your greatest natural strength and converts it into your greatest weakness by overusing it or abusing that strength. So for instance, the hyperachiever, of course, there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve things in life. So the strength here would be like having the energy and being motivated. But when you do so, and when you achieve at the expense of your health and your relationships, then now this strength is no longer working for you, it's working against you. And this is why there are such high untimely death rates in young athletes, and why heart attacks and all sorts of other health issues often plague corporate CEOs, because they have created results and on the outside they look incredibly successful. But I can tell you, having worked with many high-powered people, that the hyperachiever is a very common saboteur with the folks that I work with. And many of them do have that outer appearance of success, but internally don't feel fulfilled, because they realize that they have achieved what they've achieved at the expense of other things that were actually genuinely important to them. And this is how, this is what goes on when we let these things run the show. And of course, this is how it is that it can negatively impact your sales and your business performance. So that's the problem. The question is, what can we do about it? So this is where the positive intelligence model comes in. So it will help you develop what we call your sage powers. In other words, it will increase your PQ, and your PQ stands for positive intelligence quotient. This is where we find our sage wisdom, what we in this process call the sage wisdom. And the sage wisdom actually lives in an entirely different region of your brain and handles challenges in very different ways than your saboteurs do. So this is where we get to actually employ your greatest strengths in healthy ways, the ways in which we actually need to employ them. And so then we get to create positive emotions like curiosity, empathy, creativity, calm, and clear-headed, laser-focused action. And so these are the qualities that we want you to build in yourself, so you can bring that to your sales conversations and your business life in general. This will help you with things that, perhaps you're hiring someone, or perhaps you have existing folks that you are in relationship with. being able to access these kinds of qualities, curiosity, empathy, creativity, creative problem solving, these are the things that are going to make you really powerful in your conversations. And you start finding that you actually get a lot more guidance, and you find yourself saying the right things to the right people at the right time. And as I'm sure you're aware, the more you bring these qualities to the table, the better your sales conversations will be, and the better your success in general will be. And you can see here that it really is a combination of all these different factors that are part of who we are. So really, achievement equals your potential, all your great innate skills and strengths, and then multiplying that potential, bringing in the PQ component, so it is that you can work to your strengths rather than to your weaknesses that we've talked about. This is all really cool in theory, but I just want you to know and understand this is not just academic. This model that I'm talking to you about here, this positive intelligence or PQ model, has a proven track record of impact on sales. So here are some specific real world examples. At MetLife, the positive intelligence trained salespeople outsold a control group by 37%. At Sanofi Adventis Pharmaceutical, the trained personnel sold $55,200 more a month than the untrained folks. At L'Oreal, it resulted in a $91,370 increase per salesperson over the course of a year. And at CIBC, these folks that had improved their SAGE muscles, their mental fitness through positive intelligence, that accounted for 32% of booked sales and 71% increase in pipeline sales. These are some pretty amazing statistics. And so, sometimes this kind of work is looked at as a soft skill, but I really want to impress upon you that there are real world hard fact benefits involved with building these soft skills. So the key to your mental fitness, your positive intelligence, is to weaken those internal saboteurs who generate all your anxiety and negativity in the way you respond to challenges. And so now that we've talked about these concepts of positive intelligence, what has happened here today so far is that you have gained insight. So you intellectually understand these principles that I'm talking to you about. But unfortunately, that is not the best place to stop. It is not good for you to stop there, because insight will only contribute to 20% of creating lasting positive change. And so that's why, Matt and I talked, and today I'm offering you the opportunity to go through a 7-week journey with me to create breakthrough results in your business and your sales. And so we've had a look at this in terms of real world. So at MetLife, sales folks increased their numbers by 37%. So I want you to ask yourself, what would that mean to you? What kind of an uptick in your finances would 37% create for you in your business? Is it hundreds of thousands? Is it millions? I don't know, but you know the answer to that. And then it's, of course, not just about sales. It's also about the impact that you create in the world. The people that are out there right now that need your help. There's so many people out there in the world that need the help of smart advisors. And so this is not just about you and your sales. It's really about the positive impact that you create in the world as a result of increasing your competencies. All right. So one of the reasons why I decided to partner with the folks that have created positive intelligence, in particular, Shirzad Shamin, who is the brains behind the operation, so to speak, is because of the world-class app that he and his team have designed. Silicon Valley CEOs use this work because it is so powerful. And Shirzad comes from Silicon Valley. And so his ability to technically create a really powerful app that works well, keeps you engaged, trains you cumulatively a little bit at a time to build those mental muscles that we're talking about, so you can lessen the voices of the saboteurs. They never go away. They just don't. We as human beings, you don't ever get to really 100% eliminate those voices. But what they do is, as you increase your mental fitness, the voices get quieter and quieter in your head, and your ability to recognize them, catch them, and do some small activities, what we call PQ reps, to shift out of that part of your brain and into the sage part of your brain just improves exponentially over time. And they actually do know that within 7 weeks, after a 7-week mental fitness training of just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you will literally see, if we put you under an MRI imaging machine, we will literally see an increase in the gray matter of your sage brain regions and a decrease in the gray matter of your saboteur regions. That's just amazing to me. All right. So this is the program that we're recommending for you as the SMART Positive Intelligence Program. And it runs for 7 weeks. You get to do a custom saboteur assessment. So you take a quiz and you can find out exactly what the ratios of your particular unique recipe of saboteur activity is. And then you, of course, also get to be able to track that. So at the end of the training, you get to do another assessment to see how things have shifted for you. And typically we see some really great decreases in the percentages of the activity of the saboteurs in your day-to-day life, which of course is where the quality of life shows up. And so you get that custom saboteur assessment, so we can then work together on your specific key areas of challenge. You get weekly bite-sized videos that help you master the key concepts and practices that allow you to shift out of saboteur and into sage more effectively and efficiently and easily as time goes on. And then you get 10 to 15 minutes of daily guided practices. All of this is in the app. So it's literally at your fingertips, in your pocket, ready and available to help you under any set of circumstances. So you no longer, Matt, have to bang your head on the door frame in order to solve your saboteur problems. All you'll have to do is reach for your phone. And then there's the interactive PQ gym, which is in the app as well, that helps you build your mental fitness muscles literally 10 seconds at a time. And this is where you build what we call your self-command muscle. And better yet, Shirzad, he's a scientist. He's taken all of this stuff to the laboratory and researched it. So we understand exactly how it works from a behavioral and neuroscience standpoint. So you can really be confident that this will work for you as well, because it has been developed with that in mind. And the insights from the clinical trials have helped optimize this. So the training is delivered based on what works best, what we really, from, over like 500,000 participants in this program so far. And so we built on that. So this is like a very highly, finely tuned training that really works to give you brief practices that activate the sage part of your brain so you can bring it to your conversations and be more resourceful as you go about your day. And then there are bonuses. And I'll tell you how much it is in just a minute, because you're probably curious to know about that too. What I can let you know is that part of what we've found out is that the key, one of the main keys to sustaining enthusiasm in the daily practice, to completing the 7 weeks of training, is to create what's known as a support pod. And so I will be running support pods for you guys to participate in, where we get to meet every week. So if you've got any questions, your questions will be answered. If you've got any challenges, we can talk about your challenges and work out how it is that you might work with them and look at new ways that you can understand these things. We'll make sure that you completely understand the key concepts, so you don't move forward in the training without having made sure that you know what the principles are that were being taught the week before. And then, of course, it also creates community, it creates support. And I'm going to call on a few folks in just a couple of minutes who have gone through this training, so they can tell you a little bit about their experience with it. But this is one of the least expensive ways to get access to me. I charge up to $1,000 an hour for people to work with me one-on-one. So this is a really great way to get access to me and my support and my 20 years of coaching experience to help you move through any challenges you might have with regard to this. And then there's another bonus for the first 5 people that sign up. This is an additional $500 value. You will get a full year's access to the app to help you sustain your practices and help you really keep on going with this, because we know that so often what happens is that people do some kind of training and it works well for a while, but then it peters out because you haven't developed a regular, consistent practice, and you go back into really more understanding the concepts as opposed to practicing the concepts. So this will keep you going for a whole year's worth of support. All right. And as I said, this is like one of the most affordable ways to work with me. It's an investment of $9.95, a single payment, which saves you $130. Or if you want to do 3 monthly payments of $375, you can go that route too. And so all you need to do is go to tonymaree.com/SmartPQ. And I am going to paste that into the chat for you guys. So there it is. You can click on the link. You just have to scroll down to find one of the payment buttons and choose which way you would like to invest in that. And there'll also be an email being sent out, I think tomorrow, Matt, is that right? That will provide you with Matt's giving the thumbs up on that one. So there will be an email being sent out tomorrow as well. But of course, I encourage you to be one of the first 5 so you can get that year's access. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of an idea about logistics, because you might be, will you be able to shrink me, Peter Kitsero? You bet, my friend, you bet. All right. So a little bit of program logistics so you can understand that piece of things. After you sign up, the following Saturday, you get your first video, your first training video after you've registered. And then in that next week, we'll set you up with the support pod, and the coaching will start the week after. So you have a whole week to practice with the app, to absorb the first teaching concepts. And the thing that's really great is that the teaching concepts in this come in bite-sized pieces, broken down to being like a couple minutes long. So you'll get a video and you can watch it at your leisure. And just, whenever you've got a spare couple of minutes, you can sit down and watch that over the course of a few days if you want, or they come out on a Saturday. So it can be a great way to start the weekend off with, I don't know if it's bang, but, but to start the weekend off well. And then there are multiple time options available for the coaching pods. We can invariably find one that works for you and your schedule. And so with all of that having been said, I would love to invite, I'm going to actually go back to, I'll stop sharing the deck and let's go back so we can see some smiling faces here. Paul Harris, I see you unmuted and I know that you have been through this program. Would you like to share what your experience has been?
Yes. I guess I didn't know you'd been doing this for 20 years, Tony, but 20 years before you started to help people, I started working on myself. And after 39 years of doing that, going through this program blew my mind open in a positive way. It's been the best program I've ever done as far as learning about myself and how I'm responding. I mean, it was fantastic. It just was all around good. I liked the whole idea when I first saw them, that those 9 pieces and how they impact you. And I'm still learning it, because it's like you said, you can start on it and then not apply it. No, I keep applying it, but it's shown up in many different areas and it's all been positive, all positive.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Paul. And Ed, do you have anything that you would like to share?
Well, I'll keep it very simple, which is not usually my manner of working, but I will keep this simple. It works. And I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out, why do I have these negative thoughts? And the people that I run around with seem to be 100% positive all the time, but they probably have some way of controlling their negative thoughts. And I guess what hooked me on when I first heard this is, if you wake up in the middle of the night, which is 3:30 in the morning for me, with some kind of anxiety, which was happening, I said, yeah, I'd like to fix that real fast. So it's a simple process. Shirzad has done a fabulous job of making this in small bites, and it's easy. It doesn't take all day. You can spend a few minutes every morning just getting your head squared away. And in the middle of the day, if you fall off the turnip truck, you can immediately spend another 2 minutes and get your head screwed on straight. And it works. And Tony is a phenomenal coach. It's great that she's going to be right there by your side the entire time to keep you focused. The app is going to remind you that it's time to do something, and you choose the time you want to do it, but it reminds you, oh yeah, I got this new habit I have to start. I got to actually start thinking, or stop thinking actually. And I spent a lot of money in a lifetime trying to fix this, and everybody came up with, oh, here's why, but they had no way of fixing it. They just tell you why. Oh, this is why in your childhood, you fell off the bike and now you don't like bicycles or something, but how do you fix that and get back on a bike? So the solution is there, as long as around with also allowing you to understand this simple approach. So that wasn't simple.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you sharing that. And I remember you telling me as we were going through this process that you had one day in particular where just, you know, the shit hit the fan in your day, right? There were a number of disappointments, and this really helped you shift that, right? Yeah, he's nodding. So I do want to share, are you willing to share a little bit about that? I mean, you don't have to give us details, but just how,
Yeah, no,
how you were
just,
able to shift it.
you know, it's just like, you know, 4 things happen in a row that are negative and major negative. And it's kind of like, okay, you know, I guess I'm glad I'm not very close to the Golden Gate Bridge. So I just got out of my office. I went, sat in the chair. I went through the process. I spent, I don't know. Oh, I actually spent twice as long. I spent 4 minutes instead of 2 minutes. And so, you know, it just cleared my head and said, you know, this isn't true. You know, you talk to your saboteurs, and I came up with liar, pants on fire for whoever the saboteur was at the time. And I just fixed it. You know, I said, okay, let's get back to work and get rid of this crap going on in your head.
And in the past, Ed, I know you mentioned to me how long you thought it would have taken you in the past to get over those particular disappointments that happened that day.
Oh, days and days. I mean, it's kind of like if you work really diligently and you know that you're going to get this piece of business and then you don't. I have a tendency to beat the hell out of myself. And I think some other advisors might do the same. And you just kind of, that one situation can bring you way down and make you powerless and ineffective for days.
Yeah, instead of being able to just, you know, pick yourself up and start focusing back on the new opportunities and moving forward. So, you know, and I'm quite certain that that's one of the primary reasons why we see these huge numerical increases in people's sales figures, is because, you know, sales is probably the biggest personal development program any of us will ever go on. And it can be so tough when you've had a major disappointment to just get back to center and stay productive and purposeful. Matt, I see you've unmuted. I think you have something to share.
Yeah, you know, I think it's really important that you have always some type of program towards self-improvement. And if you find something, what's really encouraging about the statements is the fact that both Ed and Paul are sticking with it. You know, that's the you know, there's nothing worse than the eternal search for the solution you never find. You know, it's torture. You know, so, you know, and both Paul and Ed have described this program as being something that, you know, you were their Sherpa through, their guide, and then they've been able to continue it past, you know, your guided tour. And I think that's a big deal. You know, when you're trying to get somewhere, you know, you're riddled with doubt and disappointments. And on the other side of it, you know, you might say, well, you know, I'm doing all right. I don't know if I need that much help, you know. And on the other side, you get to where you're highly productive, and then you deal with overwhelm. You know, so there's a narrow band where you can really be healthy, happy, and serving yourself and humanity. And then it gets very, you know, there's 2 swords that'll kill you. One is doubt and disappointment. The other one is overwhelm. In the descriptions that you were giving, I think those saboteurs are applicable on both sides of that range, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, you just said something about sales is a very something business. And I don't think we all even realize how difficult it is, let alone what we sell. Just the whole idea of getting yourself back up. That is brutal, but it's just something we expect. We discount it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. And what I said was sales is the biggest personal development journey you'll ever go on. And you need help along the way. It's just that simple. It's like, it's too tough to just do it all on your own. And a few people have signed up, so that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to working with you.
There's something in what he said that's very important. And honestly, this is the number one problem in the advancement of advisors. Okay. They get comfortable in a spot. Okay. they're comfortable with what they're doing here. Now, the world may be changing around them and their skill set needs to expand. But when they feel expansion, they contract back into that space of comfort. You know, and Paul, this is a lot like the conversation I had with a lot of you, and I believe Hubert was there as well, as may have been a few others. What I was talking about, you know, if you're an AUM guy alone, are you doing the right thing? And the answer is no. If you're an insurance guy alone, are you doing the right thing? The answer is no. If you just sell life insurance, are you doing the right thing? No. You know, it's about this constant expansion into other areas. And what happens is the rejection loop keeps people in a safe zone. You know, I'm good at selling an annuity. I'm good at these clients being happy with my managed money. I'm good at explaining the benefits of life insurance. Great. But what if they all need all those things and they want you to be all of them? What happens is the rejection loop slaps you down. She's right. It's the reason you guys have been on a lifelong journey of trying to get, you know, better understandings of yourself and better management of stress and anxiety and everything is because this business will beat the shit out of you, man, because you know, it happens all the time. You know, I can't let go of this one case I missed because it's not that I missed the case. I don't need the money. It's not about the sale. It's about the fact that I got this guy with this massive problem that I should have been able to fix and I didn't. And now he's never going to fix it. Right. And he thinks he's insurable forever. And I barely got him through. You know, I had to use internal credits that I built up writing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of million with these companies and beg and borrow from what I've done with them in the past and use my positioning with them to get them through. So what happens is next time when he goes to, you know, to go solve the problem, however he does, the solution's not going to be there. So my failure is really about not the failure of selling. It's the failure of being the appropriate advocate for the client. My failure is going to compound this guy's problems, and he's going to compound it right into a wall because there's no fixing it. I was the great last hope and I missed, you know? So the idea is that, you know, the selling is an incredible way to put yourself under tremendous pressure. It's like competitive sports, but you just never quit and you get older and shit affects you differently, but the pressure's still on all the time. So I think that, it's really great that this program it's ridiculously inexpensive. I mean, I've got a meditation chair in my back that cost me $11,000. So to me, it's like, you know, give her to $997 and show up. The biggest thing is never give money away unless you're going to show up. That's the key. You know, the success in the group is the people that show up. You know, the people that don't show up, then, you know, they don't show up, you know, but they don't show up for anything, you know, and part of winning is about just getting in there, you know. So
Matt, yeah, one of the things that you said was this business can beat the crap out of us, but I don't know who beats the crap out of us more, the business or ourselves. And one of the things that Tony is an expert at, and it's the words we use, it's our self-talk, and she will catch you in a heartbeat when you start saying any two words that are a negative impact on your psyche. And she will correct it and give you the proper words to use to get yourself focused on where you want to go.
And Matt, I compliment you on getting us all together because if you want to use me as a guinea pig, I've been around for a while. It's going to take me a while to make a change, which I've already done. And I'm moving towards completely out of my comfort zone. And I'm excited about it because I know that's where the real growth is. And so, you know, just being on this call and, you know, other calls we've had, you've brought something to the business of all of us we need, don't even know we need it. And it's like going through the PQ training and realizing, wow, this is fantastic. Has nothing to do with insurance. It's improving the quality of my life and those around me. But I don't want to be, I'll take my time, but I'll move. And it's when I move, it's big. So I'm like super excited to keep doing this and keep learning. You've introduced things that I didn't know about. And usually it's, no, I'm going to go back to keep with myself. Just the personality of the person you're dealing with people are here because they want to improve. They're willing to push themselves. They've tried a bunch of things, and you keep bringing the best for us. So thank you, Tony.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Paul. As I mentioned right at the beginning of this presentation, I love you guys. I love what you do, and I take a stand for it. As a coach, I take a stand for what you are bringing to the world. And by default, I get to help bring that level of service to and impact humanity by default, because that's what you guys are doing. Like what Matt was talking about earlier about, it's about the money. Money is important, and it's really about the heart and the service as well. Matt, do you have any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
No final thoughts. It's just I thought the presentation was very well done. And I think that it's important that everybody invest in their own minds and their own, their own self-talk. It's very important, man. I'll tell you, I mean, my ebb and flow of success and failures has been largely 100% dictated by all that stuff. I know the moves. I just don't execute them as well sometimes as I do others,
Well, and I just noticed, Paul Harris, are you okay if I share your question publicly?
Sure.
Like Paul gets it, right? He's been there, he's already experienced it, and he wants to go through the training again. That to me that's how we build mastery, right? Like you'll get a whole new level of evolution revisiting that and going through it another time, Paul. So that's awesome. I mean, it's like I have been building it consistently into my practice. And, one of the beauties of being able to teach this is that I also get to revisit it every time as well. And there's, it's like peeling the layers of an onion, right? We have layer upon layer upon layer. And the more you do it, the more powerful your sage mind, your ability to be creative and responsive evolves. So yes, Paul, you may do it again.
Tony, do you have any wrapping up comments? Because I've got to shift from mindset to going and getting money that's in my office. Like
we've talked a lot today. Is there anything that anyone's curious about that we haven't answered? Okay, gone. Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you everyone
great job, Tony. Great job.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Take care.